WNBA, as you know. They're calling for players in the WNBA are calling for more money. They 9%, I believe, accordingly. They get 9% of total revenue compared to roughly 50% of the revenue of NBA players. Should they be getting a larger share of the revenue in the WNBA?
Yes. I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
People still think this league is allergic to real money, that the ceiling is fixed and the rules are sacred, which is adorable because someone just lit a match and walked away smiling. A decision got approved that wasn't supposed to exist. Numbers got whispered that felt illegal to say out loud. And suddenly, the people who preached growth takes patience are sprinting for the fire exit. The question isn't who got paid, it's who just lost control and why this changes everything.
In the past, go on record and talk about money and her expectation and her hope that she makes enough money to build a house somewhere. The tone that she took had some people pessimistic about whether she would be returning to the Fever. But we can see from here that her mentality is not that she is going to be leaving. She is going to get plenty of money because of the nature of the CBA that is being negotiated. In the last CBA, she was making about a half max contract, just over $100,000 per year.
The WNBA spent years convincing everyone it was finally stable, growing, and untouchable, only to somehow fumble the one thing it could not afford to mishandle.
Big fumble of all fumbles is the WNBA fumbling this entire Caitlin Clark situation. It is absolutely a travesty and embarrassing. I didn't even see this Lexi Brown and Joy Taylor situation. I've posted plenty of things with Lexi Brown. Lexi Brown was one of the people that admitted Caitlin Clark was targeted by WNBA players. She admitted that there was a level of hostility toward Caitlin Clark that was not toward any other player.
Because while the league was busy congratulating itself for progress, the rest of the sports world was quietly watching a masterclass in how to undervalue your own golden goose until someone richer, louder, and far less patient showed up with a checkbook and a smirk.
As she was going pro, I immediately ran over to Lynn Dunn and said, "We have Elvis." She's like, "What?" I said, "There's been a lot of singers in music. There's only one Elvis. This is Elvis." And I knew, I've been in sports for 40 years. I knew this was something special. There's moving the needle. She's the needle. And I say it, there's been no one like her.
People thought the system was working, that the league had its star, the momentum was locked in, and all Caitlin Clark had to do was smile, take the hits, and be grateful. That belief aged about as well as milk left on a Phoenix sidewalk in July.
Mel Bird, she had Van Slugenhagen on her. She was like, "I'm offended that y'all have white defensive players guarding me," and she put her in the torture chamber. You should have known from her little face that she didn't want this matchup from the beginning. Caitlin reminds me of what Dame does. If anybody ever noticed, her first shot always a three. First quarter, second quarter, third. She sets the distance on her first shot, so you have to guard her there. Now she can do whatever she wants to do. She's playing a chess game. That's what Dame does. He starts his game off. He's going to shoot a deep-ass three to force you to guard her.
Because when your biggest attraction is getting body checked like a rental car and flying commercial while carrying your entire league's relevance on her back, you are not building a future. You are advertising a clearance sale. Caitlin Clark did not just join the WNBA. She dragged it into conversations it had been begging to be included in for decades. Sold-out arenas stopped being a rare achievement and became the default. Television ratings stopped needing charity explanations. Merchandise moved so quickly that it made executives nervous because demand exposed the actual inadequacy of the infrastructure. She turned casual viewers into regulars and skeptics into ticket buyers. And she did it while earning a salary that would barely cover parking in some NBA arenas. And then there is Sophie Cunningham, who somehow became the most misunderstood part of this entire story. People love to pretend professional sports are still about box scores and nothing else. As if personality, marketability, and audience connection are just cute side bonuses. Sophie brings edge, visibility, and a brand that travels well beyond the hardwood. She sparks conversations, reactions, and engagement that leagues pay consultants millions trying to manufacture. Pair her with Caitlin Clark, and you do not just have talent, you have a traveling media event.
Any other rookies from the pages, none of them dealt with the things that Caitlin had to deal with. And Lexi Brown admitted it. Now we have them. She makes it very clear. She's dealt with Napheesa Collier. She's been a teammate of hers. And these players, rather than getting a deal done, they're more focused on getting Kathy Engelberg fired. And this whole thing is backfiring on these players to the point where they couldn't even get a response from the owners. The owners are saying, let's move on free agents.
Now, here is where things start getting uncomfortable for the WNBA. Because while it was busy pretending everything was under control, Adam Silver was not asleep at the wheel. He did not need to shout. He did not need to posture. All he had to do was watch the numbers, watch the chaos, and recognize a familiar pattern that he had seen leagues lose to before. When organizations refuse to evolve, markets do not wait politely. They correct violently. The league had one job, which was to protect the players who were dragging it forward. Instead, it let resentment masquerade as competitiveness and confusion pretend to be toughness. Caitlin Clark absorbed fouls that looked less like defense and more like a hazing ritual nobody wanted to admit existed. Officiating decisions felt inconsistent at best and dismissive at worst. Fans noticed, casual viewers noticed, investors definitely noticed, and when the product starts looking unstable, money starts looking elsewhere. That elsewhere turned out to be very well-ended and extremely serious. When reports surfaced that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were being courted with contracts that made WNBA salaries look like lunch money, it was not shocking. It was inevitable. You cannot suppress market value forever without consequences. The shocking part was how little resistance the league seemed capable of offering once those numbers entered the conversation.
If she gets not a single percentage more than that, she is going to be making at least $500,000 a year under the new CBA. She may be making more than that depending on the CBA that they finally settle upon. But it's not going to be anything that she's not going to be able to fulfill all of her financial desires with. To say nothing of her participation in Project B, which is going to give her at least $2 million for
$50 million does not negotiate with $76,000. It laughs at it, pats it on the head, and asks if it would like to come along for the ride. Adam Silver did not have to lift a finger to obliterate the WNBA's bargaining position. He simply let reality do the work. The NBA model understands star protection, revenue sharing, and visibility because it learned the hard way that talent goes where it is treated best. When you allow a system to publicly undervalue its biggest assets, you send a message to the rest of the world that those assets are available. And available they are. Other organizations are not circling Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham out of charity or curiosity. They see leverage. They see a league struggling to justify its own rules while asking its stars to sacrifice indefinitely for a promise of future growth that always seems just one season away. They see athletes whose names drive engagement globally, but whose working conditions scream local minor league energy. That gap is not a problem for outside investors. It is an opportunity. The WNBA tried to sell patience as a virtue while others sold ownership, equity, and respect. It tried to frame low pay as a temporary inconvenience, while others framed massive contracts as a starting point. One side asked for loyalty, the other offered private jets, global exposure, and financial security that spans generations. That is not a difficult comparison, no matter how much tradition you sprinkle on top.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who appeared on the Today Show in New York earlier this week, speaking out.
So in an exclusive, anchor Craig Melvin asked the commissioner what he thought about players in the WNBA demanding more money and whether they should have a larger. Yes, they do deserve it. I mean, it is ridiculous how less they make than women or than men. So the collective bargain.
This is where Adam Silver's quiet dominance really shows. He understands that you do not block competition by pretending it does not exist. You block it by making sure your product does not look fragile. The WNBA did the opposite. It exposed internal tension, inconsistent leadership, and an unwillingness to adapt quickly enough to protect momentum. When Stephen A. Smith kept sounding the alarm, it was easy to dismiss him as noise. In hindsight, he was narrating a slow-motion collapse. Because once athletes realize they have options, power shifts instantly. Silence becomes strategy. Non-denials become leverage. Every day the league avoids addressing these offers directly, it signals uncertainty. Every day Caitlin Clark boards a commercial flight while generating millions, It reinforces the idea that loyalty is being mistaken for obligation. Every ignored foul and every brushed-off controversy adds another reason to listen when someone else calls. The WNBA is now facing the terrifying realization that it does not actually own its future. It borrowed relevance from Caitlin Clark and assumed she would never ask for it back. It assumed players would accept being underpaid because history told them they had nowhere else to go. That assumption died the moment outside organizations proved they were willing to build something new rather than beg for entry into something broken. Adam Silver did not destroy the WNBA by intervening. He destroyed the illusion that it was immune to competition by simply allowing market forces to operate. He exposed how brittle the structure really was.
You got Caitlin Clark, and everybody's excited. You got money. Now, here's the deal when it gets real interesting, and you start talking about money because you got the Kansas City Commission, right? And Adam Silver, you've opened up a can of worms that's bigger than he could do, right? Because you got now a situation where the WNBA, okay, there's not going to be a 90% revenue split anymore.
A league that cannot protect its stars cannot demand their loyalty. A system that cannot pay its value players cannot pretend to be shocked when those players listen elsewhere. If the two most marketable players in women's basketball walk, the narrative flips overnight. The WNBA stops being the inevitable destination and starts looking like a stepping stone. Once that perception sets in, it is nearly impossible to reverse. Leagues live and die by the belief that they are the pinnacle. Lose that belief and you lose leverage with everyone. The irony is painful. The league finally got what it had always wanted: attention, ratings, relevance, and cultural buzz. And then it treated that success like a problem instead of a gift. It tried to manage stardom instead of embracing it. And now it is watching from the sidelines as others offer the very things it refused to prioritize. Caitlin Clark does not need to leave to prove a point. The mere possibility that she could have already changed everything. Sophie Cunningham does not need to sign anything to expose the flaws. Her inclusion alone highlights how modern sports economics actually work. Together, they represent a future that the WNBA helped create, but seems incapable of sustaining. Adam Silver understood that moment before the league did. He did not have to say a word. The obliteration happened quietly through contrast, through competence, through the uncomfortable realization that someone else is always willing to do what you will not.